Hey guys, back again with another video. The usual E3 video that I like to do. Basically, after every E3, I just basically cover all like the conferences and what I thought of them. Usually, these videos are really long. I'm gonna try to keep things brief for this one because I know not a lot of people can sit for like an hour long video. But yeah, let's get with that said, let's get started. With EA's press conference. And I always say that I'm not going to watch their conference because I'm not interested in a lot of their games. But I don't know. Every time I just, for whatever reason, I just decide to watch it. And yeah, it was lackluster like like pretty much every one of their conferences, at least in my opinion. Um, but let's go over what they had. Probably the most disappointing thing is that they didn't show a lot of the new Mass Effect game. Like that's the one game. Like BioWare games are the games that I'm interested in from EA, and Mass Effect they didn't show much of it. They showed the protagonist. They showed little bits of gameplay here and there, and it was like a kind of a behind the scenes video on the game. But yeah, not many details. In fact, a lot of the details came out afterwards, like a day or two afterwards. So yeah, that was a little disappointing, but it was honestly the only thing that I found interesting throughout the entire conference. Uh, like most EA conferences, most of it was devoted to sports games, which I'm not into whatsoever. I guess the one interesting thing is I think like there was an NBA game that had like a story mode. And with the new FIFA game, they're actually adding like this story mode where you kind of like follow this character. I forget what his name was. He might have been actually like a famous soccer player. I have no idea. I know nothing about soccer, but I thought that was kind of interesting because I think if you add story modes to some sports games, you might get me a little interested. For instance, like an NHL game, like I sort of like the gameplay for those games, not enough to buy any of them at full price or anything like that. But if you add like a goofy kind of story to an NHL game, I might actually be somewhat interested. But I did think that was a little interesting that they're adding story modes to sports games now. But otherwise, I was really bored throughout that entire sequence, especially with like the Madden. Like I really don't care about Madden at all. They opened the show with Titanfall 2. One of the big things with that game is that there's finally a single player campaign. I know a lot of people wanted that with the original game, and of course it's on PS4 now. It looks okay. The multiplayer doesn't really appeal to me, but the single player campaign, if it's good, it's a game I might pick up like later down the line, and it is the type of game that would drop in price really fast. But yeah, it's like a $20 game. I might buy that game at $20, but I'm not excited for it. That's for sure. Battlefield 1, I know a lot of people are excited for this. It's very multiplayer. It's a very multiplayer centric series, and I'm just not into that. And I don't even know if there is a campaign, but Dice's campaigns, they're always really bad. So I wouldn't get too excited for a campaign in Battlefield 1. But yeah, a lot of the show was focused on that. There was like this after show where they had all these celebrities playing it. And that was actually really funny because a lot of the celebrities were clearly stoned. I don't know, I thought that was just like this hilarious, like the whole after show was hilarious. And it was better than the conference itself. But what else? They had like this indie game called FE. It had like a striking art style. I don't. They didn't show enough of it. I couldn't really get a good grasp on the gameplay from that. But I guess EA is doing like this EA Originals program where they're just trying to get more like indie developers, which is good. I like that. But from what they showed of that game, the FE game, I don't know. It didn't look like my kind of game. But I'll have to see more on that really. And then the rest of the conference was like a lot of Star Wars talk. Like they showed a few different Star Wars games, like Battlefront, a new Battlefront game maybe. I don't know. That whole Star Wars part, like I was really kind of not paying attention because like I don't hate Star Wars, but I don't love it either. Like I merely just kind of like it. And Star Wars games don't really do much for me. The only types of Star Wars games that do anything for me are RPGs. Like a Knights of the Old Republic 3, like not fucking Old Republic MMO garbage, but an actual Knights of the Old Republic 3 would be really exciting for me. But other than that, I could really care less about Star Wars games. But that was the EA conference. Wasn't very good. It was really boring. Uh, but I watched it anyways. Moving on, and this was like Sunday. This was before E3 even started. But Bethesda's conference was after that. It was a little better. Still not amazing. They started with Quake Warriors, I think it was called, which is like they're rebooting Quake again, but it's a multiplayer only game, like an arena shooter, which I like that more than like a lot of the shooters they have these days, but I still don't see myself playing that. Um, I would have much rather like had like a single player Quake reboot. There was a Skyrim remaster, the remastering Skyrim, which did anybody really ask for that? Like, I don't know. I find that kind of confusing. Like, I enjoyed Skyrim, but I certainly don't want to play it again. But it is good, I guess, for people that haven't played that before. Although, really, who the hell hasn't played Skyrim? Dishonored 2 was like the last game they showed. I know a lot of people really love the original Dishonored. Every time I see this game and Dishonored 2, it just doesn't do it for me. I don't know. The game just does not look enjoyable to me. Maybe I have to give the first game a shot. And one of these days, I think I am going to try it. But it just doesn't appeal to me, honestly. So I wasn't too thrilled with the Dishonored 2 footage they showed. The most interesting thing at the conference for me personally was Prey, and there were rumors beforehand that they were gonna like Arcane Studios, Arcane Austin was gonna be doing like a Prey reboot, and you know after like the canceled Prey 2, which looked awesome. That was like this bounty hunter in space type game with the same protagonist as the original Prey, which I really liked. I actually liked that game a lot. Like it wasn't amazing, but I did actually dig that game. Prey 2, they didn't show much gameplay. It was like the CG trailer. You could tell it was CG, where they had like these first person shooting sequences, but you could tell that they weren't in game whatsoever, which always pisses me off when they show those kind of trailers. But the concept for the story is actually really intriguing, and it's got like this sci fi horror thing going on. It actually reminds me a lot of like System Shock in a lot of ways. So it's nothing like the canceled Prey 2, but it seems interesting. And I'm actually more excited now that I know that Chris Avellone, I think that is how you pronounce his last name. This guy is like, if you look at his resume, like this guy's one of the best writers in the industry. He worked on Knights of the Old Republic 2, Fallout New Vegas, Planescape Torment. Like this guy is a fantastic writer, and he's helping write this game. So if anything, the story in Prey 2 is probably going to be amazing. Don't know about the gameplay because again they didn't really talk about it a whole lot. But the Prey game was definitely the most exciting thing for me personally from that conference. There might have been some other things they talked about at the conference. I forget. Like I think there might have been Fallout 4 DLC talk or whatever, but that didn't really interest me. So we're going to move on to the next conference, Microsoft. And Microsoft's conference actually surprised me. It wasn't terrible. I was expecting it to be terrible. It wasn't great, but it was decent. It kept me interested. And there's one part of it that I really liked, and we'll start with that. And that's like the PC support. They're doing like this new program, like kind of like a cross-buy, cross-play program where a lot of their games, in fact, most of their games, are going to be able to be played on Xbox One and PC, and you can play with each other if you're like playing on PC and Xbox One. If you buy the Xbox One or the PC version, you get the opposite version for free, which I think this is a really cool initiative. Now, I've heard some rumblings, and I know if someone bought an Xbox One at launch, this might be kind of annoying to hear, because I mean, what's the point in buying an Xbox One now if everything you can just play on PC? But personally, that doesn't bother me too much because, you know, I have a PC and all these Xbox One games, I don't want to have to buy an Xbox One to play them. So it's great to hear I can play a lot of these games on my PC now. Of course, you can't get them through Steam. You're going to have to get them through the Windows 10 store, which is a bit of a bummer because the games there don't drop in price really. So I'd only probably buy games there if I'm really excited for them and have to have them on day one. Because like Quantum Break, for instance, is on Windows Store, and I would like to play that game, but it's still full price, and I don't want to pay full price for that game. But yeah, let's talk about the conference. Probably the big news is the Xbox One Slim. I think it was like $300 US. Of course, that's still pretty expensive in Canada, but yeah, it's a slimmer version of the system. I think there's like it's got like a new controller. Not gonna make me want an Xbox One, but I don't know. I have to say, like, I don't know who would buy this, honestly. I am kind of a little confused, but maybe there is some audience for this, for like a slim Xbox One that I'm missing. Or people, I guess maybe people that want an Xbox One just don't want to pay so much for one. I don't know. At the end of the conference, they announced Scorpio, which is like this. It's like the PlayStation Neo, which they didn't show that at the Sony conference, but it's like a really powerful Xbox One, like powerful than a lot of like big, powerful PCs. Like a lot of they were naming all like these really crazy specs. I'm curious how expensive that system's going to be. Again, like with that in the PlayStation Neo, though, like I don't really see the need for something like that when you could just have a gaming PC. But yeah, I guess that was like kind of the big announcement at the end. But let's get into the games. Gears of War 4 they showed. I don't know. That game just does nothing for me. I don't know. It just looks so like it looks the exact same as like Gears of War 3 or Judgment. Like I'm not seeing anything that kind of sets it apart from previous games in the series. And cover shooters, I'm getting so sick of cover shooters. Like I don't know. Gears of War 4 just looks really dull to me. No interest in that whatsoever. Sea of Thieves, Rare's new game, which is kind of like it reminds me a lot of like The Division or Destiny. It's kind of one of those like MMO type games that's not really an MMO, but pirate themed, and you can get your own ship and things like that. That game actually looks pretty fun. The world seemed really empty, so maybe the game's not far along in development yet, but I think that game has potential. I might be interested in that if I hear more on it and it starts to look better and better. But it's certainly an interesting concept. It's like, taking Assassin's Creed Black Flag, taking like the pirate aspects of that game and just making that all like, massively multiplayer or whatever. But yeah, it has potential, though I'm not super excited for it yet. They showed Scalebound, and this is probably one of the more disappointing things at E3 for a lot of people I've seen. There's been a lot of negative reactions to this trailer that they showed, this gameplay trailer. Co-op focused with multiple characters on screen fighting this boss. Now, I'm still going to, like, I'm still looking forward to this game, but I am a little more cautious now. I mean, it's Hideki Kamiya is directing this game, and for me, like, that guy's done no wrong. Like, every single one of his games I've loved. So I'm not ready to just dismiss this game just yet, but I'm not looking forward to it as much as I was in the past. It just looks really slow. The boss had like all these really predictable patterns to it. The characters were really annoying, and the dialogue was just like cringeworthy. There were frame rate issues like throughout the entire demo, and it has that co-op focus, which I'm not super into. And then the dragon form just looked like way better than the on foot stuff, to the point like, why would you ever want to be on foot? Why would you never want to be on your dragon? But the bow and arrow gameplay looked really sloppy and just not fun. Especially when you compare it to like the new Zelda game, like the horseback bow and arrow stuff, and that looked amazing compared to this. But yeah, it doesn't have like the sense of speed that a lot of Kamiya's games have. It looked clunky. It was not a great gameplay demo. I'm hoping it was just a poor demo and maybe a poor boss, and that game just needs more work. But yeah, I can understand a lot of the negative reactions to that trailer. It wasn't too impressive. But moving on, Recore, which I guess is like a budget game now. They announced it's a budget game, and I think it's coming out pretty soon, where you can kind of control different robots to solve puzzles, and there's like light combat. Doesn't look like my type of game, to be honest. I think there is appeal there. I don't think it's going to be a bad game or anything like that, but not. I don't see myself playing it personally. Final Fantasy 15 was surprisingly enough at the Microsoft conference, and the gameplay demo they showed was really bad. Now it was apparently like just for this demo, like that gameplay demo was not in the actual game, but the guy playing it was probably really bad, I'm assuming, because he was failing to dodge all of the attacks of this giant boss, and you had to like wait around until like a cutscene happened, and then you used like a blizzard attack to defeat him or whatever. It just the whole demo looked really sloppy. Like the player made it look really bad. I think it broke. The demo broke at one point, and he had to reset the fight. Yeah, it was a mess. That whole demo was a mess. But I don't know. Playing the actual demos that they've released for Final Fantasy 15, the combat is not as bad as that demo makes it look. And apparently they've improved it since those demos as well. So I'm still looking forward to that game. I'm not like super hyped for it or anything, but yeah, the demo was definitely not great. Dead Rising 4, a very small trailer for this, and this was leaked before the conference. I'm excited for this. I love the Dead Rising series, even though Dead Rising 3 was really disappointing to me. It was like all brown and gray and really self-serious compared to the previous games, and it was really tedious to get to where you needed to go at points. Like I thought the world was actually a little too large, the city that you explored. I preferred the more densely packed malls of the first two games. Dead Rising 4 looks like it's back to a city location, but I think there is a mall. It's during Christmas time, which I like. Frank West is back, which is great as well. It's developed by the same team that did Dead Rising 2 and 3, Capcom Vancouver. And Dead Rising 2 I really liked, so I'm still looking forward to this. Although I thought I read somewhere that the time limit, they've actually removed the time limit from Dead Rising 4, which that to me is what kind of gave this series its identity. That was the unique twist this series had compared to like other zombie games. I mean, guess that, and I guess all the crazy weapons that you can create. But losing the time limit, I gotta say, it might make this game just kind of get lost in the shuffle with all the other zombie games that we saw this E3. So I'm hoping the humor is there and the boss battles are creative. And I am definitely more interested in this than all the other zombie games at E3. But yeah, that time limit news definitely bummed me out a little bit. I know a lot of people probably listen to that and be like, oh yeah, no time limit. But honestly, someone that doesn't really like time limits in games, I feel like Dead Rising 1 and 2 really handled that aspect of the game really well. But yeah, Dead Rising 4. Forza Horizon 3 they showed, racing game, not into racing games. I mean, for a racing game, it actually looks really good, and that's probably the best you can get as far as racing games go, and I know a lot of people are excited for that, but personally, not much interest there. Halo Wars 2 is what they ended the conference off with, which RTS game, not my thing, and it's the Halo universe, which I think is just not interesting whatsoever. Uh, CD Projekt Red showed their Gwent game. I think is it on mobile? I think mobile PC. I think it might be on everything, but I know a lot of people liked the Gwent card game in The Witcher 3. I couldn't get into it. Honestly, I didn't like it that much. So I can't say I'm excited for this, but I know a lot of people are probably going to be quite addicted to this. I know a lot of people just love Gwent, but sadly I couldn't really get into it. State of Decay 2. I was talking about zombie games with Dead Rising 4 earlier, and this is one of those zombie games they showed off that looks like this looks honestly. I don't think this game looks that good at all. Like it looks so fucking like bland. Like it got that brown and green environments. It's co-op focused. It's got all like these defense elements added to it. And the first game never looked that great to me in the first place, and this game doesn't look that much different, but like it's just I don't know, man. I'm so sick of fucking zombie games too, man. I don't know. This game, State of Decay 2, does nothing for me. Like I was like bored through the entire trailer. A new game, Inside. I think they showed this last E3 by the developers of Limbo, which I actually didn't like Limbo too much. That game honestly was just like trial and error to me. But Inside looks a lot more interesting conceptually. We still don't know a lot about the gameplay, but I think it's one of those games that you really want to play without knowing too much about it. And it comes out pretty soon. In fact, I think at the end of June this comes out, although a little bit later on PC, which is where I'm going to be playing it. And then finally, Tekken 7. Not a big fighting game guy, but Tekken is probably one of my favorite fighting game series. So I could see myself picking that game up when it's like dirt cheap. I think it's actually coming to Steam, which is pretty cool. I think that's it. There's probably more, but that I'm missing from that conference. But that's all I really remember. So yeah, not a terrible conference. I was relatively interested throughout. There's a few games I definitely want to play there, and I'm really loving the whole playing everything on PC and Xbox One thing that they've got going on. There was a PC gaming show. I forget which day that was. I watched bits and pieces of it, but last year's PC gaming show was terrible. It was most of it was games that were already out. And this one was actually probably even worse than last time. Like it would have the same problems. The pacing was really bad. It was a bunch of games we've already seen. The only thing I liked there, from what I can remember, is the Tyranny trailer, which is Obsidian's new game. Very very much like Pillars of Eternity, but you can play the villain in that game, which I think is awesome. And I'm always down for an Obsidian game. Like I think they make fantastic games, so I'm definitely gonna be playing that. But I think that was like the only thing I remember. Otherwise, I was like falling asleep during that. Like but then again, I didn't watch too much of it. And Sony up next. This is the big one. This is the one I was looking forward to. It's always the one I look forward to the most. Like they usually do a really good job at E3, and this conference was really strong. It wasn't amazing like last year's. It didn't have like those knockout surprises, but there were definitely a few surprises and a lot of games I wanted to play. It began with God of War, which this surprised me because at first I didn't think it was a God of War game, and even when they showed Kratos, I thought it was a different character for some reason. And this game, there's a lot of details that have come out since where apparently there's no loading screens at all. Once you're in the game, you're in the game for the rest of the entire for like the entirety of the game. A lot of it is based on the relationship between Kratos and this child that you've got with you. And it's kind of like a more personal journey. And the gameplay they showed, the thing that threw me for a loop at first is the perspective. It's no longer like a character action game, really. It's more zoomed in, and it's like a more of like a third person action game. It looks a lot slower. It doesn't look as over the top as previous games, though. The developers came out and said that it is going to be as over the top as previous God of War games. It looks just a lot slower paced in general. It reminds me of The Last of Us a lot, like with the environments and just like the adult character with like the younger character, and their kind of journey. It's interesting. I gotta say, I was not expecting this from like a new God of War game. The name is kind of weird. It's like it's a reboot of God of War already. We're getting a reboot, but I think they probably should have called it something different, like God of War subtitle or whatever. Now, like it really does look different, and I like that they're not just doing another character action game. I mean, God of War Ascension, like no one cared about that game, but I can't say it's too appealing to me. I don't know, something about it. It just doesn't look. It doesn't look fun to play for me. It just. I don't know. I'm gonna keep my eye on it, and maybe it ends up being surprising. But as someone that's never really liked the God of War games, it's it. I honestly still would probably rather play a character action God of War than this. Um, like the combat looked pretty simplistic. Like it. I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. As interesting as it was, and as different as it was, of a change at least for the God of War series. I can't say I would want to play it. But yeah, moving on. Death Stranding. This is Kojima's new game. People were like crazy hyped for this. It just showed a trailer. I mean, they don't like Kojima's company. Like they don't have an engine for this game yet. Like this it's not going to be coming out for like years. And the trailer was weird as fuck. Like it was bizarre. Norman Reedus is back. He's got Norman Reedus back for this game. It's like he's naked. He finds a baby. There's like these weird angel things in the background. There's like these black like it's one of the most bizarre trailers I've ever seen. I don't know. A lot of people are excited for this, probably just purely because it's a Kojima game. But honestly, I need to see more. Like I'm not excited just watching a trailer with a bunch of weird shit in it. And I'm not as like I don't love Kojima like a lot of people do because I've said before the Metal Gear Solid series is not really one of my favorite series. I really like the fifth game, but that's for gameplay. It's not really for the story. And honestly, the best thing Kojima's done in my opinion is Snatcher. Like I think that game is awesome, but yeah, I think this game's supposed to be like maybe like a sci-fi horror game of sorts. Again, I want to see gameplay. Like this kind of concept CG trailer it just didn't do much for me to be honest. But you know what? I am just kind of looking forward to the fact that Kojima is not stuck with Metal Gear anymore. It's actually almost like a blessing in disguise that he left Konami. Because like now he gets to get away from Metal Gear and do some new stuff, which I like because I do think that guy's got some really good ideas. I mean, Snatcher, Metal Gear Solid aside, it's like Snatcher I thought was a really awesome game, and Police Knots I really enjoyed as well. So looking forward to this game, but I'm not like immediately hyped already just because of this like CG trailer. Last Guardian they showed gameplay of that. That's coming out in October. That game exists. People are playing it. It's going to be coming out this year. Yeah, pretty crazy. Looks very emotional. Like that's one of those games that I think most people are going to play that are probably going to shed some tears playing that game. I'm betting anything that creature dies at the end. I mean, then again, it's maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe that would be too predictable. But that game, it looks good. It looks good. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be like a nice emotional experience. But I'm not as hyped for it as a lot of people are. Final Fantasy 15, they showed like this VR thing for it. It looks stupid, and the impressions I've heard are pretty bad for that. But VR. I don't know, we'll get to that. Horizon Zero Dawn, they showed more of that, more gameplay. This game looks fantastic. Like honestly, I'm shocked at how much I love the look of this game. It's surprising because it's done by the guys who did the Killzone series, which I hate. I fucking hate Killzone. Like, I think that is a terrible series. I think they play like shit. They've got terrible stories. It's all just graphics with those games. But Horizon, not only does it look gorgeous, but the gameplay looks actually really fun. Like all the different enemies that you're fighting, everything is just really smooth. There's all like these different mechanics. It's like an RPG in a lot of ways. The world looks interesting. It looks really good. I mean, what can I say? I'm genuinely shocked that this is probably one of the best looking games at E3, and I'm actually very excited to play this. Now, it is releasing February of next year after Persona 5, so I'm probably not going to get to play it right away. I'm going to be like knee deep into Persona 5 at that point, but I'm still definitely excited for it. It looks great. I can't deny that. David Cage's new game. He showed Detroit. A lot of story choices, but David Cage, his games, a lot of people like to shit on them. Beyond Two Souls, I think is fucking garbage. But Heavy Rain, I liked mainly because of the stupid shit in that game. Like I thought it was hilarious, and it was fun. Trying to kill off your characters and just the cheesiness of it. And then I liked the whole murder mystery kind of thing it had. This game, you've got like androids, in futuristic Detroit. The choices are probably going to be bullshit. Like choice in narrative games is always just like, overrated. But I don't know. It looks more interesting to me than Beyond Two Souls, which I thought was just silly and stupid. But it's not the game I'm gonna buy day one. We'll see. David Cage, like his writing, I think is really problematic, but he's got other writers with him this time apparently. So hopefully the game will actually turn out well with like its story and writing. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Resident Evil 7, this is one of the big surprises. It was rumored, or well, it wasn't rumored. It was, we were going to see Resident Evil 7 at E3, and Capcom said it was returning to its horror roots. So they began with this trailer, and it was like PT. It was in first person. It was very atmospheric. Some really like disgusting. Like the slideshow type trailer they showed at the end of the actual gameplay had some like really disgusting monsters designs. Which I really liked. But this was like this really moody, slow-paced gameplay. And at the beginning they said Kitchen, which was kind of like their Capcom's VR horror demo. And at the end it said like this whole gameplay demo was going to be VR. So I thought it was just going to be like, an extension of their Kitchen game. I was not expecting it to be Resident Evil 7. And then of course they said afterwards that you don't have to play it in VR. It can be played without it. And then a demo was released on PS4, which I haven't got to try yet. I need to download that. But this was a nice surprise because I really liked PT, and I'm glad we're getting a game like that, with PT canceled. Now, I've heard this isn't as atmospheric or as scary as PT was, but I actually think this game in VR is going to be amazing because as like VR, I'm not that thrilled about it. For the most part, I think it's just going to be a gimmick. But I think VR is going to work wonderfully with horror games. Where you really feel like you're in these environments, and when things come out of nowhere and monsters, and you see a monster out of nowhere and you're immersed in that world, that's actually scary. Unlike a lot of like TV shows and movies and most horror games, like that's actually scary, and I think it's gonna be really like tense. And I think this is going to be a really cool VR experience. Now, I'm not sure about actually like the game itself. Like, apparently it's all in first person. I know some people were worried that there wasn't going to be any combat in it, but I think there are going to be guns in it from what I've heard. I think their aim assist was spotted in the demo. But at the same time, apparently that demo is not in the full game. There's a different character. But it's weird because it's going back to horror roots because it's horror. It's not action like Resident Evil 6 was. But it's really nothing like the old Resident Evil games. I mean, other than the fact that I think it takes place on the plantation, like it's just one location. But I mean, this is all first person, and it's more based on atmosphere, and the combat is not a big focus. Now, combat wasn't a big focus in the old games, but there was probably a lot more of it. There's a lot of guns you could have, but the big thing, like, really, you have to question. Okay, well, going back to the roots, what do people want from Resident Evil 7? Because I'm seeing a lot of like negative reactions to this. But I'm actually looking forward to this. I think I don't know if they needed to call it Resident Evil 7, but it's interesting. But what do people really want though from Resident Evil 7? Do people want just like an old school Resident Evil with like tank controls? Do people really want tank controls back? Or maybe people want something more similar to Resident Evil 4. I'm not sure. An interesting question for you guys, but I think this is an interesting direction to go in. Apparently, a lot of people are bringing up Outlast. Apparently, it reminds them of Outlast, which I've heard mixed things on that. I'd like to give that a try one day, but yeah, I don't know. It's weird because they're doing a Resident Evil 2 remake, which they didn't show, and maybe that will give the experience a lot of these old Resident Evil fans want that really loved Resident Evil 1 and 2. Maybe that will be like be faithful to Resident Evil 2, and it'll be like the Resident Evil game remake on the GameCube. In that regard, well, Resident Evil 7 is like this, weird experimental first-person game similar to PT, but very interesting. It was probably one of the biggest surprises of Sony's conference for me personally, and I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on that game because, yeah, it's apparently I think a launch title for PlayStation VR too, which like the PlayStation VR is the cheapest VR, and I don't really want to get it for the prices it's going for. But if RE7 is like this really good VR experience, I'm going to be tempted to get it for that game. But very interested to see more on that. It definitely got me excited for Resident Evil again after Resident Evil 6. Days Gone, they showed this at the end of the conference, a weird game to end off with. A new IP from the guys that did Uncharted on the Vita, Bend Studios, I think. This looks like generic zombie game. I'm like maybe with like Last of Us vibes, but I guess the difference here compared to a lot of zombie games, although Left 4 Dead was kind of like this, really fast zombies, a bunch of zombies on screen. It like I'm so sick of zombies that I couldn't muster up much interest for this game. I mean, I guess it was cool how many zombies were on screen, but it didn't look fun to play at all. And again, really boring environments, like brown, green, everywhere. I don't know if the story is going to be all that great in it. Again, like a God of War and what else? Well, I guess not really, but yeah, Days Gone. It's cool that Sony's got a new IP, but what they showed just didn't impress me at all, honestly. Moving on though, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, another game that I didn't know what it was at first. But yeah, it's made me more interested in Call of Duty in a long time because it's all like futuristic. There's like space battles. You're fighting in space. It looks pretty fun to play, I gotta say. I don't know. It seems like a game I would maybe play at $20. First person shooters. It's first person shooters have to be doing something like really amazing for me to get into them, or it has to be like Doom, where it's like so old school, in a really great way. But yeah, I do like how they're actually doing something different with Call of Duty now, though, and it's not the same old shit. Spider-Man game from Insomniac. I saw a lot of hype for this, and it's great that we're actually finally getting a superhero game that's developed by a studio that has talent, and it's not like a rush job. Now, I'm not a big Spider-Man fan. He's probably like now I'm not a comic book guy in general, but Spider-Man's probably one of my least favorite comic book characters. However, I think Spider-Man translates well to video games, like especially like the open world game format. And I think Insomniac can create a really interesting Spider-Man game. So honestly, I think this actually looks pretty good. We didn't see a whole lot on it, sadly. I think it's still in development for quite a while, but I'm looking forward to it. I actually think it's probably going to be a good game. Crash Bandicoot remasters are happening of the first 3 games on the PlayStation, and he's coming to Skylanders, which who cares about that? But I'm excited for this. I haven't played Crash Bandicoot 1 and 2, so I'll play the remasters. And Crash Bandicoot Warped is like one of my favorite 3D platformers. I loved that game as a kid, so I'm excited to see this. And they're all for PS4, built from the ground up apparently. So that was a surprise, and I think it's like a way to test the waters in the market, uh, to see if people really want a new Crash Bandicoot game. But yeah, that was pretty surprising, exciting news. And then they talked about PlayStation VR. Luckily, not too long. I thought this conference was going to go on forever, and an hour of it was going to be dedicated to VR, but they just kind of had bullet points for it, when it was coming out, and saying 50 launch titles, which is pretty good, although a lot of them are probably going to be like shovelware tech demo type stuff. But yeah, overall Sony's conference was pretty strong. It was just game after game. There were a few of them I'm not interested in, but it paced well. It was maybe a little too brief. I was expecting a little more from it, perhaps, but overall it was a strong showing. But yeah, finally, we're moving on to Nintendo, which some disappointments, but some great stuff too. They didn't have a Nintendo digital event this year, which was a little disappointing. Just Treehouse Live for 2 days. The first day was Zelda and Pokemon Sun and Moon, and the new Zelda. Pokemon Sun and Moon, they showed like 20 to 30 minutes of it. I don't know. Pokemon's one of those series that I loved as a kid, but as I've gotten older, it doesn't really do much for me anymore. Now, it is the kind of game, though, I like playing alongside my friends. Like, if we're all playing it at the same time, I do get a kick out of it then. So it depends on if I know a lot of people that get Pokemon Sun and Moon, then maybe I'll pick it up. But I can't say I'm too excited for it. And it was kind of a bummer to see that, like, before Zelda, because everyone was just like, oh, come on, get this over with. We want to see Zelda. But finally, they dedicated the rest of the day to Zelda. It's called Zelda Breath of the Wild. Looks fucking awesome. There's been a lot of positivity with this game, and yeah, it looks phenomenal. A lot to say on it. I mean, it's fucking huge. Like they were saying, like the demo that they had, and it was this massive area that they had for the demo. They were saying like it's barely 1% of the game. Apparently, the size of the world is like slightly smaller than Xenoblade Chronicles X, which that's fucking insane to me. That game was fucking huge. I'm hoping there's enough stuff to do in this game that it doesn't feel like you're just running from place to place, and like I don't know, when there's too much downtime, it's probably going to get a little old. But from what the demo showed, there's actually quite a lot to do just in this one small area of the map. You have all like these mini shrines that you can find, over 100 of them apparently. And aesthetically, they all look pretty similar, which is a little disappointing. But the puzzles that are in them all looked really exciting. And you get all like these different abilities to kind of progress through these dungeons. And there was multiple ways to solve these puzzles in these mini shrines, which I really liked. And some of them you're not going to be able to get through when you reach them, but you'll be able to mark them on your map, so you can kind of return to them later. The horseback combat in this game, and the combat in general, looks awesome. Like, it looks really satisfying and fun. All like these slow motion moves going on, all sorts of different weapons and items you can use, and they all like kind of behave differently. There's some stealth mechanics in there. It almost reminded me of Metal Gear Solid 5 in a lot of ways. The stamina meter, they take the stamina meter from Skyward Sword and they do some interesting things with it, with like the wall climbing and things like that. And it kind of gets integrated into combat and all the sorts of other things, which I think is brilliant. It looks gorgeous. And people were worried that there's like no NPCs or towns. But Nintendo said afterward, yes, there's NPCs in towns, but they weren't showing story related things because they didn't want to spoil people. They were more focusing on the gameplay. Which is smart. Definitely smart. There was like a few boss battles they showed that looked fantastic. The exploration looks just phenomenal. The environmental variety is great. Like, it looks like a total blast. There's a few things I'm iffy on though. For one, the inventory management looks like kind of a pain in the ass. You're collecting so much shit from the looks of it, and just going through that inventory of all that stuff could be pretty annoying. And there's weapon degradation, so your weapons are going to be breaking constantly. And this, I was okay with it at first because you can get a lot of weapons from the enemies you fight. So you're really, from what I noticed, you're really not going to run out of weapons. But your inventory actually has a limit. So if you have too many weapons and you try to pick up another, it'll be like you have too many melee weapons. That sucks because this game is so huge, and I could see it taking a long time to get to like a town where you can like start selling your stuff, which apparently is the only way to get rupees in this game. And if that constantly happens where you're exploring and you're constantly running out of inventory space and have to constantly discard stuff and constantly have to go to a town to sell your stuff, that's a problem. That's going to be really irritating. It's really going to interrupt the gameplay. So that part of the game is the only part that looked kind of bad to me. But maybe they'll fix that before it comes out. And everything else from what I've seen of that game just looks incredible. Really ambitious. It's it apparently it harkens back to like the original Zelda in a lot of ways. That whole world is open to you type feeling that the original Zelda had, and that reminds me of Wind Waker a lot as well. So yeah, I'm super excited for this game. It's probably my favorite game they showed at E3, mostly because they showed so much on it, so I got to see really how that game is going to be. But as a Zelda fanboy, I'm really excited. Man, next year, that's too long of a wait. But yeah, other than that, Nintendo was a little disappointed because that's all they really showed. Treehouse Live was a little better the next day. They showed a lot of their upcoming games. There was a new IP they announced. The Secret of Mana creator is making this game. What was it called? I forget the name of it already. But it was like this Animal Crossing Zelda kind of game. It was not appealing to me, but still, a new IP is good. I know there's probably going to be a lot of people that like that game. They showed more Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which still looks really fun, despite like the whole style of the game not really appealing to me. What else? Rhythm Heaven at the very end. They're just like, Rhythm Heaven's out now, which is great. I'm definitely downloading that. No physical release, which is a bit of a bummer, but otherwise, I'm definitely looking forward to playing that game. They showed a bunch of other games. Monster Hunter Generations, which looks pretty good. Yokai Watch 2, I think, was on there. Pokemon Go, they talked about as well. Yeah, it's like I too wish they had a digital event, honestly, but I don't know. Their Treehouse Live had a decent amount of stuff, but yeah, that was basically E3. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, that about covers it. Overall, a pretty good E3. Right now, they're in the kind of mode where you have to kind of like watch like IGN or GameStop streams to see a lot of the games. And really, like a lot of people that are on the show floor will get to see like the rest of the stuff. And from now, it's just like announcements. I guess one thing was with Sony's, like they had this slideshow reel of all these games, and most of those games I was far more interested in than a lot of the games they had extended gameplay for. Like Persona 5 got like a 1 second clip in the slideshow, and they had like this 8-minute gameplay video that's on the internet that you can watch. Like that game looks fucking amazing. Like it's the best game at E3, and Sony gives it like 1 second. Really, I don't know. That was really frustrating to me. But yeah, there's a lot of cool videos to find on the internet on the show floor. They didn't show at a lot of the conferences. Mother 3 wasn't announced, which that's kind of a bummer. I wonder if that rumor is even true in the first place. But overall, pretty good E3. I feel like the excitement level wasn't there that I had like last year. Maybe I don't know. I think E3 is just getting less exciting every year, personally, but I always tune in. I know I care about the game industry a lot, and I just like to see all the new games that are coming out. But what did you guys think? What were some of your favorite games at E3? What did you think of all the conferences? But yeah, that's about it. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.